The religious can't understand very simple concepts, can they? Or maybe they do, but it's problematic for their faith, so they just play dumb. Or maybe they really are dumb, I don't know. Let's look at a video today of someone who seems to understand until it gets to his religion and then his brains just dribble out of his ears. Won't that be fun? So, this comes from the Paul Rezaei channel, and I know I horribly butchered that name, so sorry about that. But this is someone who is very confused about how language and reality actually works, which I suppose is hardly a surprise, is it? He argues that atheism can't be a lack of belief, and in fact he wants to say that he lacks a belief that God doesn't exist, showing that he has no clue what atheism is either. There's a whole lot of confusion going on here, so I guess it's best we just tackle it, not that I think that the religious are actually going to care. So get a drink and strap in, because I'm sure this is going to be a bumpy ride.
What's up, everybody? Coming at you today with a video on a very nuanced subject matter. I'm guessing 99% of you won't even have any idea kind of what I'm talking about.
I'm sure you're not going to have any idea what the hell you're talking about either, although that's just a guess since I obviously haven't seen the video yet. Just reading the title of his video shows that he's terminally confused, so we're going to spend a lot of time today, I'm guessing, just correcting his misconceptions. Not that I think that he's going to care. It's very rare that we address theists who actually do. They are not interested in learning anything because they are already convinced that they know everything. I go into every theist video looking for new and testable information, and they just don't have any. It's just blind faith stated confidently, but their confidence means absolutely nothing if their claims are not actually true. And it's the factually true part that actually matters. So we're going to give him a chance to demonstrate something, but I wouldn't be getting my hopes up if I were you. We're hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos into this, and not one of them has ever had an intelligent thing to say. So let's get back to Paul. Please show us what you've got.
But if you are the type of person that's interested in discourse and conversations around spirituality, God, that kind of thing, then this subject matter could be for you. It's been something that's been on my mind lately.
Well, I am interested in those subjects, but only to see if they are actually true. The actual truth matters. And this is the problem with most theists, and I only say most because I haven't talked to all of them yet, but I have yet to see a single one who actually cared if their beliefs were verifiably true, who were willing to put them to the actual test and see if they stood up to the evidence that we have. Nope. It's all faith and fee-fees, and that is nothing to be concerned with at all. The second that faith comes up, I know I'm talking to an idiot, because faith is not a demonstrable path to truth. It's just an overactive fantasy life, barely in disguise. So I know I broke in on him, and he had something on his mind, so let's get back to Paul and see what he wants to tell us.
And I just wanted to share my thoughts. Maybe some of you may be interested in what I'm about to say. But, before in the past, I was a little bit confused because I would watch a lot of content between atheists and theists. If you don't know what those words are, an atheist, well, what do you think that word means?
I'll tell you exactly what that word means. Heck, I'll tell you what both of them mean because I'm helpful. A theist is someone who actively believes in at least one God, not necessarily in any religion, and keeping in mind that there are non-theistic religions that have no god, such as Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, Jainism, and some forms of Hinduism, which focuses more on following your own dharma than in serving and following and worshiping deities. Satanism, at least most forms of it, are non-theistic. They're actually atheists. And, of course, atheism is the complete lack of that. So it's not believing that any gods exist. It is not the positive statement that no gods are real, although some people who believe that certainly do fit under the category of atheists, since they do also lack a belief in gods. But I'm sure this guy is going to entirely ignore the reality of it and pretend that all atheists are making a positive claim that no gods are real, which is simply not true. Of course, the reason the religious pull this is because they think it benefits their side. It becomes, well, they're making a positive claim, so get off our backs and stop demanding we prove what we profess is true. It's a dodge, nothing more. We are not, in general terms, making any positive claims about the existence of gods. We have looked, by and large, at the claims you've made and the evidence you've presented, and we have not been convinced that any of it is true. Thus, we don't believe you. We're not saying you're wrong necessarily. We have not been convinced that you are right, and that is your job. You're the one making the positive claim, not us. You're the one who has to back it up, because we have no positive claims here. You do. So, I guess, get to shucking and jiving, because that's really all you can do.
Traditionally, atheists means somebody who doesn't believe in God. They say God does not exist.
That's not what it says. Notice how he's quick to skip over that. Atheism is someone who doesn't believe in any gods. Read your own damn definition. Instead, he just makes something up about how atheists believe gods don't exist. Seriously, how blatantly dishonest can you be? Why can't he just read the definition as written? Because it doesn't get him where he wants to go. And that's why I figure his video has been downvoted into oblivion. Currently, at least as I'm writing this, at 43 upvotes and 377 downvotes. You'd think that the religious would figure this out, wouldn't you? But they don't care. After all, this is just about YouTube engagement, and downvotes count just as much as upvotes. Negative comments count just as much as positive. So they're just looking to stroke the algorithm, and I think that's childish. So he starts off his video just lying. Why are we not surprised at that? I wonder.
An atheist believes in God or says that God or gods exist.
That was fine. It was in keeping with the definition that he actually put up on screen. So why couldn't he do that for atheism? Because he's not after the truth. The religious get mad every single time I point this out that they don't care about reality. But there are examples after examples after examples of this clearly being true, and the religious refuse to acknowledge them. Atheists will tell you very clearly what we mean when we say atheists. Dictionaries will say it too. In fact, a lot of dictionaries will say someone who doesn't believe in a god or gods, or someone who believes gods don't exist, because both of those things are actually true as far as they go. But he can't do that. He couldn't even come up with one of those. Instead, he got one that only did the first part, and then he just made up the second part on his own. He can't read because he doesn't want this to be true. These people are morons, and in fact, obviously, out-and-out liars. Do we think these people really care about reality in any demonstrable way if this is how they behave? Because if you do, I'd love to hear from you in the comments, because holy crap, this was ridiculously blatant.
Now, the word atheist, the definition of that has changed.
No, it hasn't. As stated in the definition that you put on screen, you made that decision yourself. That is still completely accurate. It refers to people who do not believe, not who positively state that gods don't exist, although that still falls under the umbrella of atheism, but it is a lack of belief, not the made up crap that you tried to claim it was. It has not changed at all, ever. This is a theist lie. This guy is just leaning into it. He either knows it's a lie, and he should, because he looked up the definition and then purposefully changed it, or he's just ignorant, which I suppose is also possible, but that's not something to be proud of either. The only people who get to define what atheism is are the atheists who are referring to themselves, because language is descriptive, not prescriptive. It describes how it's actually used by the people that it applies to. I couldn't just redefine Christianity on a whim, and he doesn't get to do it with atheism, so fuck him, if he says what I figure he's about to. So let's go see if I'm right.
And that's one of the main things I want to cover today. Now, what I see get brought up a lot in these discussions is this burden of proof. So I was kind of like, why do they keep talking about the burden of proof and just kind of shifting it back?
We're not, and in this case, the only reason the burden of proof ever comes up is because the religious can never meet it. They are the ones making all the claims, not us. They are saying that their gods exist, not us. That has a burden of proof. If you say it, you have to prove it. And in fact, this is why they're trying to redefine atheism, because they're tired of being in the hot seat all the time. They can't prove that their claims are true, so they're trying to push it off on others by claiming that we're making claims. We're just not. That makes them unhappy, so they're just lying about it. And that might have worked when religion had unearned social power, but that's mostly gone today. They can't force others to do what they want them to do most of the time, so they just whine about it. They just want this stuff to be true, so it takes the pressure off them, but that doesn't make any of it true, does it? Now, I might not have said if he wasn't so ridiculously blatant about it. I might not have even done this video, but he made such a complete fool of himself up front that I think people deserve to see the fundamental dishonesty of a lot of religious people. Not all by any means, but we see this kind of thing coming from big name apologists all the time, right? This is what religion is. This is what religion does to people. It's nothing that anyone ought to be proud of. This is just pathetic.
Make that same assumption that you do, then you shift the burden of proof to turn my lack of belief into a positive belief by accusing me of physicalism.
And Aaron Raw is right. It's a shifting of the burden of proof. It's a logical fallacy. Of course, the religious don't care about that because they're only after emotional comfort. They just really want to believe. Wanting to believe, that isn't enough though, is it? You actually have to be right, but the religious don't care about that, do they? If they did, they'd have actual evidence to back up their claims, which they don't. And they wouldn't be engaged in laughable, ludicrous logical fallacies all the time, which they demonstrably are. They're not after fact. They're after faith. They're after feelings. They just really want to believe the stuff that comforts them emotionally, and whether or not any of it is true, that's entirely irrelevant for them. So we get theist after theist after theist after theist, apologist after apologist after apologist, making these demonstrably false claims because they think it gets them where they want to go. But they don't care about getting to the actual truth. Where they want to go isn't fact. It's not reality. It's the childish fantasy land that they've got in their heads. And how stupid is that?
And it's more clear to me now. So essentially, whoever makes the claim bears the burden of proof.
Exactly. The religious are the ones making the claims, so they have to be able to back them up. Atheists are not making claims, therefore we have no burden of proof. And I hear from the religious whining all the time, but that's not fair. So what? Life's not fair. Get over it. There is one and only one standard. Follow it. If you don't want to defend yourself, then stop making claims that you have to back up. It's that simple. Of course, the religious don't like that one either. They want to believe things for which they can offer no evidentiary support, and they know it. They want to spread the good news, but they have nothing to back it up with. And that's their problem. They need to be able to back this stuff up, and they can't. And that's why they're so busy hoofing it around with the goalposts, because they really want to believe, but they've got no demonstrably good reason to do so. Because this isn't about reason, it's about emotions. And that's not anything to be proud of, but for some bizarre reason they are.
What does burden of proof mean? It means that you're obligated to give evidence on your claim.
Or at the very least, be able to if somebody asks. If nobody asks, then you don't really have to, although you should have that evidence in hand just in case. That's really why the religious do what they do. They have no evidence to offer, no compelling evidence at least, which is why they don't really want to talk to us. They stay in their religious echo chambers where they know that nobody's going to ask for the evidence because everyone believes for entirely emotional reasons, so they just hide there because it's easier. But that doesn't remove your burden of proof. It just means that you're dealing with gullible idiots like yourself who don't care if it's actually true. And that's really the point here. You ought to only believe things that are actually true, to the best of your ability to determine. You should care if you have evidence. They don't, but they should. The religious, though, we know they don't care, do they? And it's really sad that they don't, because there's something fundamentally wrong with these people. These people have a couple dozen screws loose, and that's pathetic.
So for example, if I say, hey, it's raining outside, let's just say for some reason we can't confirm and look outside and know for sure if it's raining. But let's say I make a claim, it's raining outside. The burden of proof is on me, so I have to provide evidence on why I think it's raining outside.
Yep, but if you offer your argument or your support or whatever to somebody else, and that other person says they don't believe you, in other words, they haven't been convinced, then they don't have to prove you wrong. You have not convinced them with your claim. They have not made a counterclaim that you're wrong. They are just not convinced that you're right. There are always three options. Yes, you agree with the claim. No, you disagree with the claim. And I don't believe you. You have not been convinced that the claim is factually correct. The first two have a burden of proof, or at least potentially so. The last does not. And that is all atheists are doing by and large, since obviously I can't speak for anyone but myself. We just don't believe you. Your argument has not been persuasive. It looks like he understands this, at least in general. Where do you think it's all going to go wrong? I don't know. Why don't you let me know down in the comments? Because it's obvious it's going to go wrong, but there's a lot of ways this could actually go.
If somebody else says it is not raining outside, they made the claim, the burden of proof is now on them.
It's actually on both of you. Anyone who makes the claim has the burden of proof. You can't just pass it around like a hot potato. You have the burden of proof, and if someone else makes another claim, they now have their own burden of proof. That doesn't stop you from having to back up your own claim just because they now have to back up theirs. This is how discussions happen, with opposing sides presenting their evidence to determine which side, if either one, is best supported. This really shouldn't be that hard, should it? I don't know why for the religious it is.
Are you following me? I know, like I say, it's pretty nuanced.
It's not at all. This is ludicrously simple. Make a claim, back it up. That's it. Why do I think he's going to take a hard left at Albuquerque, though? I see this from tons of theists who will now try to claim that atheists are making a claim, even though we're not, or that theists don't have to back up their claims because faith or fee-fees, hell, who knows? It's a very simple concept, though. Make a claim, back it up. Zero exceptions. So get to it, Paul. We're all waiting on you.
But what I see over and over in these discussions lately between atheists and theists is the atheist will say, I'm not making a claim.
Because we're not. We are saying that you have not convinced us that what you are saying is true. That is not a claim. That is the state of my conviction, having listened to your argument. I am reporting on how I feel about what you have said. That's it. Now, you don't have to care if I'm convinced. You can pick up your marbles and go home. You're welcome to do that, but you still have not convinced us of anything. We are welcome to tell others that your argument is unconvincing. Then they can make up their own mind. Of course, they don't have to. They can side with you, whatever. Individuals are individuals. But our not being convinced is not the same as us making a claim. You were doing so well there for a moment, but now it's all falling apart. So let's just go back to Paul and watch it all go down the drain.
I'm not saying that God doesn't exist. I'm simply saying that I lack a belief in God.
Atheism is simply saying God is not guilty of existing. It's not the same thing as saying God does not exist.
And that's the new definition now of atheist, is a lack of a belief in God.
It's always been the definition. It was the definition that you presented earlier. You know, the one you lied about. Because you don't get to tell us what we mean by the words that we apply to ourselves. That is not how reality works. Of course, the religious are desperate to get around their own evidentiary requirements because they know, I think on some level, that they have nothing. Again, it's why they don't want to talk to us, because they understand or have experience or whatever. They know that what they've got doesn't convince others who aren't starting off with faith and fee-fees. And now they're trying desperately to spin it in a way to the people on their side so that it doesn't look so bad that they fail all the time. And it's not working. It just isn't.
Now, why is this important? It's important because it's much easier to shoot down a claim than it is to make claims for yourself.
It's not fair. Sorry, the standard is the standard. It's being applied evenly to all. If you don't like it, stop making claims. If you never tell me that there's a God, if you never try to share your faith, if you just keep it all to yourself, then nobody is going to ask you to back it up. Nobody is going to ask for proof. It's that simple. So please do that. Leave people alone. Stop harassing people with your unsupported bullshit. It'll solve all your problems. You don't want to do that though, do you? So you're just shooting yourself in the foot and earning what you get.
Or maybe I should say provide evidence for claims.
When claims are made, evidence is warranted. If no claims are made, it doesn't apply. This is never going to change. But the religious get tired of being in the hot seat all the time. I mean, they put themselves there on their own after all. So they're now trying to squirm their way out of it because I'm sure they're getting really tired of being laughed at. And that's their fault too. They voluntarily put themselves into a position where they bear the burden of proof, and sadly, they just can't meet it. Nobody did that to you. You did that to yourselves. Knock it off. It's not that hard. However, they can't because their silly religion forces them to do it, and thus they are looking for any way, including being blatantly dishonest, to get out of it, or at least to push it off on others. And no, we're not going to let them do that. So put up or shut up. It's that simple.
Now, to go to the example that I gave, it's raining outside. Let's say I say it's raining outside. So now the burden of proof is on me. So I have to provide some kind of evidence. So let's just say I say, well, you know what? When I see people walk in the door, I see that their shoulders are wet, their top of their head is wet. I can infer that it's probably raining.
Or that there's a sprinkler running outside. Or that somebody on the roof is just pissing on passersby. Now, you can say that it's probably raining or possibly raining, so long as you acknowledge that there are other options and probably nobody's going to call you on it. However, that's not what theists are doing, is it? They aren't saying probably there's a God or maybe there's a God. They're saying that there definitely is a God, and more than that, it's always their God. And that incurs a significant burden of proof, and they damn well better be able to back it up. The religious simply can't, because their beliefs are not based on evidence that they can present to others. It's based on childhood indoctrination and an overactive imagination and blind faith. Those are not things that you can present to others and demonstrate that they represent factual reality. Therefore, we don't have to believe you. You have not convinced us that the things that you are saying are demonstrably true. You don't have to care about that. You can just go bugger off and stop making these unsupported and ultimately unsupportable claims, and people will stop asking you to justify them. But apparently these people can't do that, can they? Part of their beliefs requires that they try to convince everyone around them, and they don't have anything of substance to convince them with. And that's why they fail all the time. They're just doing this to themselves. Why is that not surprising? Anyway, next week we're going to pick up right here, so watch out for that. I've got no clue why the religious can't figure out what they're doing wrong, mostly because I'm pretty sure they don't care. These are very simple concepts, but they just can't get it through their heads. Maybe we'll find out why in the last half of the video, I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, so let's do that.